All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Plain Sports. Today, we're going to be grading the defense. Similar to our last video, which we graded the offense by position group, and then also went into like each game and kind of how we got to where we did. We're going to do the same thing for the defense in this video. If you haven't checked out the last one, make sure to do it. I think it was a pretty good video. Definitely one where you guys can, everyone here watching can share their opinion outside of ours. If you disagree, agree, all that stuff is awesome to look at. Before we get into the defense, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Like I said, hit the comment section, turn on notification bell, and go down into the description for all the links to social media. So, offense, or we rank the offense like I mentioned through the first 5 games. Defense is the focus for this video. Defense, I think, has been looking really good. Definitely taken a step forward each year that Brent Venables has been the head coach at Oklahoma, which it was to be expected. So at least that is going as planned. Zach Alley is now the new defensive coordinator, young play caller in the college football world, and is proving that he can hang with anyone on that side of the ball when it comes to play calling. Brandon, we're going to start with the defensive line. And I think this is one where people had some questions coming into the season, but had a lot of excitement for what it could be. And if you ask me, I think it's doing what it's supposed to. What would you grade the defensive line through the first 5 games of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think the defensive line's done really well. There's times where I think the Auburn game, Tennessee game, um, Tulane, I think at times, whatever, where they're getting pushed around a little bit. We're giving about 105 yards on the ground each game, which is it's kind of middle of the road there. But I think you told me before we started recording, it's like 18 sacks, which is up there with anybody in the country. As a team right now, you've got, I think, a couple of dogs on that line that are making some plays in big moments. You look at what R. Mason Thomas has done so far this season: 5.5 sacks on the year, 4 of which are two in the Tulane game, 2 in the Auburn game, with the game on the line, just coming through and making plays. You think of Grayson Holton against Houston with that safety there to really put the game on ice. I feel like every single time that we've needed it on defense, the defensive line really has got it done. Even in that Auburn game, that's a good push by R. Mason Thomas that makes Peyton Thorne throw the ball, and then it's an interception, and Kip Lewis takes it back, and the rest is history. I feel like they've got a really good rotation there. I feel like DJ Terry's a guy who's playing a lot better ball than I don't want to say that we expected, but I think he's playing really well as a guy that starting opposite Dominic Williams, the TCU transfer, who's also looked pretty good. He's got a sack, a couple of tackles for loss on the year as a nose tackle there. I feel like we can get consistent pressure with 4 down rushers. Again, when the game's on the line, they're more than holding their own. They're kind of sealing it a lot of times. I think it's hard to complain about the defensive line. I think I'd like to see PJ again. We talked about him a lot in the offseason as a guy that we'd like to see take that jump, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, we still haven't seen that yet. He's in there every now and again, kind of trying to get some pressures in there. But I think just with R. Mason's taking off, Grayson Holton, guys like that, it's harder for him to get on the field. But I mean, overall, I think you got to go B plus, A minus for the defensive line. It's been solid.
Yeah, I would I would go A minus simply because, as you mentioned, they have made the plays when Oklahoma's needed them on the defensive side of the ball. They're the ones that are getting in there and creating the chaos. As I'm pretty sure you mentioned it, but like R. Mason Thomas in 2 of the 5 games, when it's time to shut it down for the opposing offense, he's the one that does it with 4 of his 5 sacks coming in like the last drive for the opposing offense of the game, both in the Auburn game and in the Houston game, if I recall correctly. But the defensive line has definitely been up to what we've all expected. If anything, the only reason, at least I'm not going higher than an A minus, and I mean maybe you can disagree, just because the opposing offensive lines maybe haven't been what we're about to see over the next half, the next stretch of this season. Not that they have been bad. I think they've actually been pretty good. Auburn's offensive line has been pretty good, especially on the in the run game, and then Tennessee's line is good, just all around. So they're doing well so far. I think A plus means like you had a phenomenal season, not just stretch of 5 games. So if they can continue this, they're definitely on track to be the best part of this defense as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, Trace Ford, I think it was in the Tennessee game too, because we had 2 forced fumbles against Tennessee. One was an RSJ blitz, so I mean, the defensive line has a part in that, obviously, but they're not the ones hitting home. But Trace Ford is the one who got the second one. And that's a really good Tennessee front. So I mean, the line has been good.
Yep. Moving on to linebackers, headed by the All American, the guy, the Boz 2.0 from his return video, Danny Stutzman. I think they've played really well this season. I'm going to give them a B plus. I think there's definitely times where like I think it's a rotation too and getting more experience, but they've progressed. They've gotten better throughout the season. Danny Stutzman, it looked like he might have been a little hurt. I don't know what happened during the Auburn game, but towards the back half of it, he just wasn't the Danny Stutzman we typically see. Not sure what happened. But I think linebackers have done a great job. Kip Lewis is just continuing to grow. Obviously, the pick six that sealed the game against Auburn, but even if you look before that, yeah, as a whole they were missing tackles, but I think he was usually in pretty good spot to make the tackle. Obviously, as the coaches will say, and he'll probably admit to it, any missed tackles, just you can't have that happen. But when you're in position to make it the tackle, it's just executing at that point. You did 90% of the work, do the last half, do the last 10% just to complete the play, and you're good. Uh, Sammy Omasigo, I know it's technically a cheetah, and I guess I'm going to include the cheetah here. I think he did well against Auburn, and then pre Kendall Dolby's injury, he might have been maybe the best player on that defense, or was right there in like that conversation. R. Mason Thomas, Grayson Halton, but he was right there, especially with him being a linebacker / secondary guy. He would have been right. I think he was. I think he was the best defensive player that Oklahoma had up until his injury. He was making plays in the backfield, doing a good job at pass defense. So overall, linebacker / cheetah, I'm giving him B plus. But again, can continue to grow because I think as the games have progressed, we've seen better execution and better overall play from that group.
Yeah, I'm going to go A minus. I mean, I think this linebacker core has been really good too. Danny Stutzman obviously is Danny Stutzman, leads the team in tackles. I think he has 40 right now through 5 games. I agree that Auburn game, he wore that cowboy collar or whatever they're called that, you put on your linebackers when you create a player. I've never seen him wear that, or that one, the one that he had there. Yeah, I think he's, a little bit banged up for sure because he wasn't looking quite himself. The cheetah position, I was going to throw that in there as well, but kind of in a mix because I think Sammy is more linebacker and Kendall's obviously more DB. But yeah, I think Sammy, he's had to step up and step in for Kendall Dolby. And I think he's done a really good job there. He's obviously not Kendall Dolby yet because Kendall Dolby, I mean, I 100% agree. I think there's definitely a case pre-injury for him being the best defensive player on the Sooners defense. He's definitely top 3. I think it's him, Stutz, and RSJ. RSJ is we'll get to the secondary group later, but yeah, I mean he was right there. So I think Omasigo's done really well filling in for him. That 2nd and 2 for Auburn on that drive that led to a pick 6 by Kip Lewis. He blew it up in the backfield and made a 3rd and medium they had to pass, and then obviously the pick happened. So he's looked good. I think the linebacking core is going to get a little better. We're going to get Deshaun McCullough back, hopefully the rest of the season, barring him getting hurt again. But, I think it's only going to get better. They've played really well. Kip Lewis might be my favorite player to watch on the entire team right now. Just forget about the big plays and all that awesome shit that he does. But he just is always – he's so excited all the time. He's playing with his hair on fire literally the whole entire game. He's getting people going. He's really taken on that leadership role, and he looks great doing it. Kip is – I think he's my favorite center on the team right now to watch. Just overall the linebackers have been really, really solid. Again, Stut's doing Stut stuff. Kobe McKenzie is another guy that we expected to take a big leap. He's been there. They pushed Aaron Canik down, and it's just because of how good Kip Lewis and Kobe McKenzie have been, and Sammy Amasigo. I think you got to count him there at Cheetah. They've not disappointed. They've got a healthy rotation there too. Again, I think at times they can get tired just being on the field the whole time, and teams will start to get some rhythm going. But when it matters, they shut that shit down.
And to think 2 years ago, or whenever Kip Lewis came in that freshman year, he redshirted. And last year to start the year, people were saying the word around Sooner fans and even people that report on the team was Kip Lewis just isn't quite there yet because he's underweight with what the coaching staff wanted. And then they kind of have to play him because of injuries and inconsistency at the linebacker position. The guy alongside Danny Stutzman, Jaron Kanek, was having some issues, and they put in Kip Lewis. And when Danny got hurt last year, and look at him now, he might be the future of that linebacker position. If anything, he's right there as the leader of this defense with Danny Stutzman. Or when Danny's out for a series, he's the guy that you look at on that defensive side of the ball. And you're like, that number 10 is going to make a play, or he's going to be somewhere around the ball where he's going to impact this play defensively. So it's crazy to think. Sometimes the measurables aren't everything, and that's what you look at in the NFL draft. That's something that is always talked about, measurables, but sometimes you just got to let the guy play and see if he's got it in him or not.
Yeah. And I think Lewis Carter's a guy I didn't mention in my talk about the linebacker group, but he's a guy that has made a lot of big plays too. I think of that third down play against Tennessee where they tried a little swing pass in the backfield and he blew it up for a huge loss. I think of him forcing a fumble in the Temple game that Jaron Kanek picks up for a touchdown. There's a lot of depth in that linebacker room, and I think they played really well.
Definitely. And then the last position group to go over here is the defensive backs. We're putting the corners and safeties in one group here. Brandon, I'll go over to you so you can grade them first. Where do you think this defensive back group has played?
So I went A- on defensive line and linebackers. I think the secondary has been the weakest point, and that's not to say that they're not playing well. I'll probably put them at a B. The Auburn game, I think they were in position a lot of times, but not making plays. Peyton Thorne dropped a couple of deep balls for touchdowns on us. I think Kenai Walker is a fantastic defender at the short to intermediate level, and he's still a little bit questionable on the goal balls there. I think he can get beat sometimes. I think Des Malone's same kind of thing. I think Kenai Walker got beat a little worse than Des Malone. Des Malone, when you look at the ball he gave up against Auburn, he's literally right there. For whatever reason, just doesn't turn his head around, doesn't put his arms up, doesn't make he's in a great spot, just doesn't make the play. I think they've been a little vulnerable at times, but I go back to the Tulane game where the offense wasn't getting anything going. They had a huge 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, where Kenai Walker forced the ball in the air and Billy Bowman gets a pick, and Jackson Arnold scores the next drive, puts the game out of reach. Again, they shut the door when they have to. The entire defense, and that one was Kenai Walker and Billy Bowman teamed up to make a play there. So I think they've been solid. I think Eli Bowen's a guy that needs more playing time. Brent Venables said in his bye-week presser he's earned more playing time. I think he's looked good. RSJ is a guy that we kind of saw last year towards the back half of the season that he was a pretty darn good player, and then this year we're really just seeing it just all the way unfold. I think he's a top 3 player on the defense right now. If you look at what he's done, I think he's second on the team in tackles with like 35 total. He's got 2 sacks, the forced fumble against Tennessee. He's been huge. He's playing really, really, really well. Billy and Peyton Bowen are doing their kind of things. They're pretty good. They've always been good, especially Billy Bowen. Peyton Bowen and Eli are going to be players. We're doing all this without Gentry Williams, who really hasn't played much this season, if at all. Obviously, you lose Kendall Dolby, which sucks. But I think he's been lights out. But I think it's been the most vulnerable of the defense so far. But again, they shut it down when they have to. I think they found something with Eli Bowman. Um, I'd probably go B.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the B as well. Basically for the same reasons, and I don't even think it's totally. When you look at a defense in general, no matter how good or bad the front seven are, the defensive backs are always going to get the most shit because they're going to be the ones that give up the explosive plays. Similar to offensive linemen, you're only going to remember the bad that they did unless they got a pick. Unless you remember an offensive lineman getting a pancake block on someone, you're not really going to think about anything but the one sack or the one pressure he gave up. I think it's the same thing for corners here. It's kind of a thankless job to an extent. They could be covering super well, only allowing 3 catches for 15 yards through most of the game, but they give up one explosive play and everyone's going to just roast them. But they are inconsistent, especially as you mentioned. I think Kanai Walker is really good, instinctive. He is like, especially in the intermediate and short game, as you mentioned, he's on the ball more often than not, or just swarming to the receiver as soon as the catch is made, where he's not really giving much up, if anything. But it is on those deep routes where he can he needs safety help, and sometimes that's not there with this defense because there is a lot of pressures. Uh, I think if we were to split this between corners and safeties, I think the safeties might be the reason that I'm giving this group a B because Billy Bowman's playing well, but as you mentioned, RSJ is playing out of his mind. He, as you said earlier, I think when you said like top 3 defenders, him, Kendall, when he was healthy, and R. Mason are the 3 guys that you look at this season, and maybe it's because they're really emerging to being big time players for this defense. But RSJ is killing it out there, creating pressure when he's sent to go defend the run, but he's also there in the pass game too. I think he had a pick in a game earlier this season, so
The Houston game, yeah.
in the Houston game. So that I think overall this defense is doing well, but as a defensive back group because the corners have been and also a little bit banged up. Without Gentry Williams, Woody Washington has had to come in and play more nickel. He's not really playing the outside corner spot that he has been through the first 4 years of him being a Sooner. So probably a little bit of an adjustment there for him as well. I think Brent Venables in his press conference earlier this week mentioned that he's been a little banged up through the last few games. So hopefully, as they get healthier, they can improve. But the young guys have been playing well too. Eli Bowen, you mentioned when Jacoby Johnson was playing defensive back, I think he played well in the snaps he was getting. So there's a lot of promising players at that spot. But if Gentry Williams can come back, when Gentry is healthy, and I think we've talked about this, he is a guy that when healthy looks like someone that could be a first, second round draft pick in the NFL draft. It's him staying healthy that is tough because you just don't see him enough on the field. Hopefully, if he comes back at some point this season and can remain healthy for the rest of it, I think this defense gets so much better because teams don't really throw on Gentry's side of the field. So that's one thing to look forward to. Last thing to grade here, new defensive coordinator, Zach Alley. I'm going to give him an A minus. Coming from Jacksonville State, he was touted as a really good up and coming defensive coordinator, coached a very good defense down there. Coming in, especially coming into the SEC, being a new coordinator at this high of a level, I think there were a little bit of question marks around him. Is he too young? Does he have enough experience in calling this? If anything, what made those concerns not as concerning is that he has worked with Brent Venables before, and it's kind of showing on the field. I know a lot of people like to say he's like BV 2.0 or a mini Brent Venables. I I haven't personally seen that, like watching on the field or anything, but he definitely knows what he's doing when it comes to calling a defense. The simulated pressure, Brent Venables talked about it, was just the perfect call in the perfect moment. Because Peyton Thorne fell right into it. And I think Peyton Thorne went on a radio show down in Auburn or a podcast and said if he had to redo that play 10 more times, he would make the same decision 10 more times which that's when you know like the defense just called the right play, and that's what you need in this conference is just making a timely play and having your defensive coordinator put these players in the right spot because they practice this enough. Like it's basically a dance. They know where they need to be at the point that they need to be in, and Zach Alley had Kip Lewis at the right spot at the right time for that pick six.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think obviously we're playing with we have two brand new coordinators this season. One offensively, one defensively. I think the one on defense has done obviously a lot better. He's looked really really good. I think what you look at. I think the couple of things that stand out. Your three best offenses you played this season. Tulane 19 points, really 12 on him because one's a pick six. Tennessee 23 points because two of them's a safety, and Auburn 21. Auburn, say what you want about them as a football team as a whole, they're averaging 34 points a game. That offense can play. If they didn't, and everybody that talks about Auburn talks about it, if they didn't turn the ball over so damn much, they might be actually a really good football team. But those three teams, Tennessee, Tulane, Auburn, you go 12 points, 23 points, 21 points. That is good. That will keep you in a spot to win a lot of football games. If you can keep that going against the Texases, the South Carolinas, the Ole Misses, shit like that, because that's where you want to be. That's kind of the sweet spot. And I think he's done a great job, again, mixing the play calls up. Yeah, the simulated pressure. I saw the same thing you're talking about with Peyton Thorne, saying he would make that same decision 10 times out of 10. Yeah, they just got his ass. That was a perfect play call. I think if the RSJ blitz on the goal line against Tennessee, that forces that fumble. He dials the RSJ sack against Auburn, with the game on the line with 50 seconds left, and a sort of delayed blitz, and he gets through untouched and just blows Peyton Thorne up. I mean, he's done, I think, a great job, mixing the play calls up. Again, when you have to have it, the defense slams the door shut. A lot of that's Zach Alley. A lot of that's his players. I think he's done a lot better job of adapting to injuries or not having guys than we have offensively. And granted, to credit Seth Luttrell, I guess, a little bit, is he has a lot more injuries than what Zach Alley's dealing with. But Gentry Williams, you talked about it, man. He's a first rounder when he's on the field. We haven't had him all season. He's adapting without that. Lost Kendall Dolby, who has been a monster. He's done a great job throwing Sammy Owen there. So, yeah, I think getting Deshaun back to rotate that cheetah spot will be a lot of fun. Zach Alley probably an A- too. I mean, he's just been – I think he's been really good. I want to say A, but we got the rest of the season to go, and we got some really, really good offenses to go there. But again, 12 points against Tulane, 23 for Tennessee, and 21 for Auburn. That will keep you in every single game you play. If he keeps those numbers consistent throughout the rest of the season, it's 48 total defense or whatever. 16 points a game is what we're giving up right now. And I get it's a little skewed because 3 points from Temple and 12 against Houston, but those three offenses we played are pretty good, and he kept them in check. If he can keep doing that, we're going to be in every single game.
Yeah, and one thing to piggyback off the comparison you made between Luttrell and Alley is Alley is also brand new to this program. He wasn't someone that was hired internally and knew this team and these players. He came in and basically just dove right into the culture that Brent Venables has established and is taking over the play calling role, I think, perfectly. While on the other side, Luttrell, yes, he's dealing with a lot more injuries, but he was an internal hire, so I think that's also a little bit of frustration on that side. But Allie's just killing it. I think he's got a bright future in coaching ahead. Hopefully, he sticks around for like 8 years, like Brent Venables did with Oklahoma and then with Clemson before he goes on to get his head coaching job. Because losing that guy at some point is really going to hurt unless we can find another Zach Alley out there, which I can't imagine there's very many of them.
Yeah, there's probably not very many of them. I'm pretty sure Zach Alley worked with Brent Venables at Clemson for a while, so he kind of got a lot of that same philosophy there. But yeah, no, he's been lights out. I mean, the defense is the number one reason that we've been in a lot of these games. The offense has to do their part, obviously. The Auburn game, you don't win that without Hawkins throwing a deep ball that's perfectly down the field. That you end up scoring on that drive, you get 6 points on offense. But for the most part, the defense is the reason we're winning. And again, if he can keep if he holds Texas to 24 to 27 points, you're going to be in that game, and I don't see any reason why we won't.
Yeah, definitely. This defense is going to carry Oklahoma to a fantastic season. It's a matter of the offense helping them out a little bit too. But overall, I think this defense just has the world ahead of them. And given through 5 games, I think we both graded them basically at an A minus. I think the
Yep.
only thing we gave anything less than an A was the defensive backs. But if they can improve and get a little bit better, especially as Eli Bowen seems to be integrating more, they could get better. Could be just an A minus, A overall squad come into the season.
100%.
All right. Well, that is everything for this video. Make sure to hit the comment section. Let us know what you think about this defense. Grade them through the first 5 games. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell. Follow us on all links down in the description. We appreciate y'all watching. See you next time.